We're just 2 minutes in. A few more people, I'm sure, will be joining us later. But those who've joined us this morning, welcome to Coffee with Callbi. This is, if you haven't joined us before, a very informal, open chat. It's not a sales pitch and it's not a demonstration. So any questions you might have, I'll be monitoring both the chat and the QA. And with me today, I'm hosting today's event. My name is Rod Jones, and I am the brand ambassador for Callbi Speech Analytics. My colleagues joining us today, Henriette Potgieter, who is our customer success executive, and she's here to help us onboard new customers, help with the training and the optimization. Corey Springett has about 20 years in data analytics and many years in speech analytics as well, and has had great experience with Callbi. We now have just close on 80 customers using Callbi, so both Henriette and Corey are very experienced in the day-to-day application of speech analytics. So no sales pitch today. Henriette, would you come in and just say hello to our guests today? And there we go. There's our Henriette that you'll be hearing a lot more of. And Corey, camera on, please. And introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone.
Great. So you have the team here now. And to those who are joining us as attendees, thanks so much for taking the time. We probably won't take a full hour today, but please do input any questions that you have. We've got specialists standing by now to answer questions, etc. We've had a few email questions come in. Henriette, and this is an interesting one, and Corey as well, your views be valuable as well. This is from a potential customer saying, who is the ideal person in the call center or the contact center to become the Callbi Champion? The person that we will train up to become the Callbi Champion. So I think we'll come back to you, Henriette. Corey, your view on that. Who is the ideal person that you are engaging with? And I'm going to ask Henriette the same question.
Rod, so I think there are two aspects to the question. The first one is typically what we would term the Callbi champion or practitioner. The person building the queries and the dashboards and driving the insights. Predominantly, they need to understand the business of the business. So they need to understand if they see something in the conversation, the relevance within the contact center, and, is it important? So it's not somebody from IT. It is somebody with the, background in that contact center. They need to be able to think logically, and typically, some of the best Callbi champions are those who are sort of comes from a business analyst type of background, can think logically. They've got a QA background, so they can drive through those insights, but it doesn't need to be, it's not technical. They don't need programming experience. They need the business experience.
Okay. Henriette, your experience now, because you are intimately involved with starting up and onboarding customers and getting them through that initial training and then into optimization. So you've had what, 25, almost 30 years in call centers. So in your view, who is the best person to come aboard as that Callbi champion?
Thanks, Rod. I want to tie in with what Corey said, and it's definitely not just the technical skill. It's not a person who's only used to writing code. We've compiled through the experience where we've worked and seen people who were very successful in the role. We've compiled a bit of a profile or a key strengths, and I want to share that, and I'll chat you through. That will give you a good idea of what the ideal and what we call the recommended key skills for your Callbi champion. And that would be the person who is writing your queries, building out your dashboards. So if you can confirm, I'm just sharing that document with you.
Your screen.
Are you able to see? Perfect. So very much you'll see, and this is the skills profile of that person. So
excellent.
Analytical skills. It is someone that needs to be able to look at data, see the patterns, draw conclusions from those patterns that they see. Being able to solve a problem, so problem solving. So again, as you can see here, it's not those technical skills. We're not saying it's somebody who must have a SQL experience or writing code or doing things like those. process orientated, because remember, this is you start with A, you go to B, you go to C, to make sure that when you build that query, it's robust, you get the result, and you are able to repeat it over and over again. Detail focused. So it must be someone who wants to go into the detail, be organized, look at what's being productive, understand the causes and the effects of situation. And it's back to what Corey said. It's being able to see and find the things, not just looking and not interpreting in what you are seeing.
Okay.
Willingness to learn, which is a key thing that I've picked up. That need to learn, somebody who's curious, somebody who wants to break it down and wants to find the answer. That is almost one of the key skills that you need in a person, because this person needs to sit with a blank slate. They need to say, what do I want to get out of Callbi? And how am I going to get that? And what am I going to do with that? Then also quality and experience in the operations. Like Corey said, the person needs to understand quality, how it fits together, the impact on customer, your compliance side, but also very much your operations. They need to know what needs to happen within that operational environment. All of that together then makes that perfect Callbi Champion.
Okay. The transition from being a quality and a quality assurance person in a call center who may have been doing QA for several years, is that the right sort of background to become an Insights Analyst, a Callbi Champion? And does the Callbi training take them into a different level?
Right, it definitely does. So part of that process is also that change management, to say, previously as a QA, you were used to probably getting a checklist or getting a sheet and told what to listen for. Now through this training, we start showing what can you get, what can you build, what types of insights can you do. Not every single person is ready to go and be the ideal Callbi champion. You will find through the process, you will identify certain people, and that's where I also give inputs. We've got an assessment that I can put them through where I can show you the strengths, who's ready to become your ambassador, as we will call it, or your champion, and then who would be the QAs that supports the process. So like Corey mentioned, there's two roles. You'll get your champion who builds, who does, but then you also get your QA or your insight analyst who needs to use the results. So they won't be building the queries, but they need to use the results. They need to go check on those calls. They need to provide feedback. So yes, to your answer, the training process supports it. I support the process by giving feedback, and we have the assessment available where we can say, you know what, based on everything we've done, this is where we need to give some more, or maybe this person is not the ideal, because you will find maybe that key strengths is not for the person to be the champion, but rather supporting the process, checking the calls where Callbi can't do those things.
One of the questions that has come in was actually sent in by email, is from, she's asked to remain nameless, a quality assurance specialist in a contact center. And the question is, will technology like Callbi replace QAs altogether? So there's a lady who's a bit wary about losing her job to technology. So I think, Corey, first your impression, and then I'm going to come back to Henriette on that.
So categorically, it's not there to replace the QAs. If anything, it makes the QAs more efficient, so you can do more with the same amount of people. Think of currently your typical QA assessment rates are probably 2 to 5% of calls. Now you can assess 100% of the calls, but the reality is speech analytics is not a silver bullet. It doesn't do this by itself. You've got to, still interpret the result sets, as you said earlier, but more importantly, you still got to go and listen to those calls that fail your checks and balances to address it. But what it fundamentally does is changes the paradigm from random sample-based QA to exception-driven QA, to look at the exceptions, understand why the exceptions are occurring. Do you enhance the query, or is this a legitimate exception that needs to be addressed? So you're never going to get away from the human ear listening, but it makes it that much more efficient.
Okay. And then, Henriette, you've been working with, 70, 80 QAs over the last 2 years, introducing Callbi in and optimizing it in their operation. Have you come across QAs who've had this fear of job loss through technology? And would you address that, please?
Yeah, Rod, definitely. We see it everywhere so far. It's that initial fear that you are here to replace me. And I also categorically state, no, it's not to replace the human ear. It's to make the job more meaningful. The time is gone for a person to spend 8 hours of their day listening to a call if something was done or not done. It's a mundane task. If you can use a machine to do those things quicker, 100% of your calls, then you start doing more meaningful things. The human still needs to listen out for certain things. There's limitations to speech, such as, was the correct ID provided? Certain of those checks still need to happen. Certain soft skills things, the coaching side, all of that still needs to take place. But use the machine to take away the dull, meaningless jobs. And what I mean is, I come in, I log in at 8, I need to listen to 120 calls for the day and check a spreadsheet. No, now I can open a machine, I can see what failed, and I'll share my screen and I'll, by means of an operational, practical example, show you where you now use the QA person or the verifier or whatever you call them in your business to go to the files, to validate, to help giving input to make the queries better. But because they now also have more time, they can start coaching, or they can start giving input for more meaningful queries, or they can start investigating silent calls, things like those, versus now just listening to a call from start to finish.
Let's pick up on the keyword you used there, coaching.
Yes.
What insights are coming out of Callbi that we weren't able to see before, that makes that Insights Analyst QA better equipped to do more targeted coaching? Would you pick up on that, Henriette, please?
I think it comes down to the fact that you're now sitting with 100% of calls, insights across 100% of calls. The random sampling based, it was difficult if you listen to 4 calls, and on 1 out of the 4 calls, maybe there was a coaching opportunity. Now you sit 100%, and I quickly just want to share my screen, Rod,
please do.
If that's fine with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through everything. I want to just go into the dashboards, where this is looking at a scorecard per agent per sale. So I'm not going to go into too much of the details. If anybody is interested, we can go through how to set up the scorecard, etc. But now, because you have a view across 100%, when you look through this scorecard, we can now see per agent, per check, and you can build a query for whatever you want to go look. This is now a compliance example, but you can go look for soft skills. You can go look for objection handling. You can look for any of those things. And you will immediately see where there's low scores, that now becomes a real coaching opportunity for that agent. Outside of your compliance, and you're asking the types of insights, you can use Callbi to go check silences. And I quickly just want to show you here. So Callbi will show you if there is silent time, dead air on your calls. Dead air is either a knowledge thing. The agent is new, they don't know how to pitch or what to do or how to answer the client, so they're waiting for someone to help them. It might be a system issue, or it might be behavioral. So the silent and the dead air is one of those insights. You can go check to see when your agents select a call wrap-up or disposition. So they say this is what happened on the call. You can use the insights from Callbi to check the logic of that. If an agent says it was a voicemail, and typically in an outbound environment where they don't want to contact the lead again, they want to put it in for someone else to contact, they'll wrap it as a voicemail. You can now build a query to check, was it an actual voicemail? Or where they say the client was not interested, was there an indication of not interested? So it's not just the QA or the compliance things. It's knowing that you have access to anywhere in that conversation and using that then to test either what they captured as a wrap, is there dead air, or are there any customer things that you need to pick up and coach on?
Are you seeing changes in agent behavior because Callbi is watching every call or listening to every call?
Agents become smarter, 100% most definitely, but I think it's also coming back, and I know Nositha is on the call, and I know she also says this a lot of times, but agents will now know because every single call is monitored. They are more present, but they also start thinking about how do I beat the system? And I'm doing it in inverted commas. Agents are now more aware. They know now, they're more present when they do the pitch. But back to the concern, and Nositha, I know with the concern that that agents will always find a way to outwit the machine.
Yeah.
That is where it then comes down to making sure you build your queries in such a way that it is robust, that when you see these things, you can change your query so that you still are able to monitor your agents. So to answer that, yes, there is a change in behavior. We are seeing in over time, as the scorecards get implemented, as the coaching happens, your performance starts lifting. You will get agents who are just either going to drop out due to performance management, but then the rest of them, the performance will lift because every single call is now being monitored.
Corey, to bounce the ball back into your court here, with your experience in data analytics, what I'd be interested to get your views on is, coming out of Callbi, those insights, at what level do they become business intelligence? Because I think that's really your forte, isn't it? So how do you differentiate between operational insights and business intelligence?
I think the term is quantifiable will come into it. And to pick up on something Henriette has said, is that visibility, and it's a hobby horse of mine that I drive through quite hard, is that granular view on which agents are struggling with what and to what extent. And that at what extent is where the difference between insights and intelligence comes into. Is, in the past, if you pick up an agent behavior, and let's give an example, the agent used an incorrect greeting on the sample that you've pulled for your QA assessment, it is too easy to explain away that it was a once-off, I had an off day, I forgot the script that day, but I do it correctly now. Where with Callbi and the ability to listen to every call and obviously getting that quantifiable evidence is, you can then say to the agent, now hold on a second, you're doing this on 50% of your calls. It's not a once-off. So you can see exactly the extent of the behavior and how rife it is. And that is the difference between intelligence and guessing. Guessing, you are making an assumption. Intelligence, you have the facts at hand that you can then drive through that behavior. But the second part, you can use that quantifiable evidence again, is to fundamentally change things like your KPI system, because now you can start measuring behaviors on the calls, and you can remunerate based on thresholds which you couldn't in the past. How do you, threshold, using the correct, let's say, passing the QA score consistently for certain measures across all of your calls when you couldn't listen to all of the calls, and by nature, sampling is biased. So that, to me, is that big difference, is the ability to track and trend and measure correctly over time behaviors that you're tracking, measures that you're tracking, so that you can have that ready evidence based on how frequently it occurred or how frequently doesn't it occur.
Excellent. Corey, also from your perspective, now with almost 80 customers using Callbi, have you had any practical experience or case study where insights coming out of the call center have reached the boardroom with tactical, strategic implications?
Sure, lots of examples, Rod, but I'm trying to think of one that could be very appropriate. Is one of our debt collection clients, in a very early conversation with them, and it happened in training, the word voicemail popped up on one of their word clouds, and it happened to be their promise to pay word cloud, and it was a most unusual occurrence to say, why does word voicemail pop up on a word cloud that is for, where you've had a payment conversation with the client? It turns out that agents were skewing metrics by wrapping their voicemail calls as promise to pay calls to skew their KPI. That now became a boardroom discussion because it has two impacts on the business. The first one is obviously the KPI system is being gamed, but more importantly, it has a fundamental impact on the business. In collections, I've got this concept of a prescription period, which means from time of acknowledgement of debt, they've got 3 years to collect that debt. But they now have a number of clients that didn't acknowledge the debt because they were incorrectly dispositioned. So little things have a massive impact if they get surfaced. They wouldn't have picked that up in the past. You don't do QA and voicemail calls. If you happen to pick up a voicemail call, it could be explained away as being, oops, it was a finger problem. I accidentally selected the incorrect disposition code for this call. But in this example, they could track the extent to which the agents were doing it. But more importantly, they could go back for the period they've been running Callbi to go and redress those calls that were incorrectly dispositioned.
Okay, excellent.
So that's the first one. And the other one around the board agenda is, fundamentally, contact centers have to evolve based on insights. Little things like how frequently does competitor mention get mentioned on an offer if we're an outbound sales organization? What's the context of the competitor mention? QA tends to be checkbox driven. These are the checkboxes I'm listening to, and everything else on the conversation, you almost become biased to and you don't listen to it. It's cognitive dissonance. We don't listen to the things we are scoring. And a whole lot of that conversation then gets ignored because I'm saying, did you use the correct greeting? Did you mention the compliance statement? The fact that he might have said that, the car is washed away in the river is not irrelevant because this is what the things that I'm listening for. So as the human, we've got that biases. We listen for what we are checking for, not for what other things might be important. And that's where technology comes into it. Callbi can listen to 1,000 checkpoints or 10,000 checkpoints in a conversation, and it'll do it, automatically. It'll do it consistently. It'll do it continuously without ever complaining.
This is really getting into the voice of the customer, understanding the voice of the customer, and feeding that back into strategic and tactical decision making. Henriette, your experience in that space?
Yeah. So I actually just wanted to tie in with something just Corey said now, and it's key, and I want to stress this, is understand that Callbi or speech is not going to change your business on its own. Callbi is giving you access to those insights. It helps you with what it is. It gives you the intelligence. It highlights the things. But key is that don't expect that now that I've got Callbi, all of a sudden, wow, my business transforms. There is now the next step of saying, what do I do with all of this? Now I have access to understand competitor mentions. I have access to see where agents are japping the system. I've got access to see where my sales are failing. What am I doing with it? And that is a key fundamental step for where you will actually see value realization. I think a lot of times, and I'm quite passionate about it, because people are so excited and it's a brilliant tool and I'm excited. And then you get this tool, you start writing queries, and then the question comes up, but what now? I've got the queries, but my business is not changing. There's a key thing around thinking and planning and saying, how do I operationalize? And what is my process now that I've got this? I've gone through the process, I've built my queries, I've got my dashboards. How do I now implement this to make sure that it becomes sustainable? And how do I track that there is improvement? So I just wanted to touch on that because
I think really that's a very important point, because I think what you've highlighted there is that Callbi gives us quantifiable insights, not just insights, quantifiable. We've had 10,000 of this or 5,000 of this product mention or whatever. And it's using those quantifiable insights to drive policy changes, procedural changes, process changes, training changes. And that goes back to where insights become business intelligence. Corey, do you want to wrap up on that one? I think, Norsi, you're still with us. Would you like to join? Can I bring you in as well, Norsi? There we go.
Hi, Norsi. Do you want to wait?
Hi.
Let me give the floor to give her insights, because I mean she's talking from.
Yeah, you've you've been listening to what we've been talking about, but as a very large user of Callbi, I think your views would be very important to our audience. So I might be putting you under the pressure here, but
your spotlights, Rod, as usual.
This is a family. It's a family gathering. So.
Yeah, like, you know what, we've had our journeys. I think, like, just to touch on what everybody has said, the first thing that we had to get everybody comfortable with is the fact that what your job is safe. It's just that everybody has to get to understanding that the business is changing, our industry is changing, and we have to move with the times. And analytical is where everybody is. So, and there's so much you can get out of it. So much. It's just that biggest mistake I made is I tried to build Rome in one day, and that was that didn't work out for me. But I had to go back and say, okay, so where's the starting point? What do I want to achieve? And we achieved that. And then we moved into the insights, and we're going into the insights heavily now. But I think trying to touch on everything else was like, is a worse idea. And I had a catch up with Corey and Henriette last week, and I said to them, all good and well, we've built scorecards, we've done this, we've done that, but what's next? Because as the industry is changing, our agents are adapting to what we've implemented, and they're finding ways to beat the system. We have to be a step ahead of them. So how do we do that? Like, yeah. So it's fun. It's exciting. It's never ending. Yeah. I don't know.
And are you finding that, you know, because of your role as the champion, are you managing to get those insights through into the executive level to actually change the nature of the business?
So we've contributed to a lot of changes in our business, and particularly around the time saving, because you've had people that were, you know, sorry, that's me. You had people that were just, you know, messing around and sitting on calls for a very long time. And we've built nice queries to even find personal calls, find people that are wasting time. And, you know, when it comes to, you know, bottom line, we've contributed heavily on that. And I don't think that the floor likes us much, because now they know we're on them. But that's exactly what we want to achieve.
So you're driving operational efficiencies, yeah.
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Nothy, thanks so much for your contribution. It's really valued, and we value your role as a supporter, an advocate for Callbi. Thank you for that. I think we're going to wrap up now. Corey, is there anything you would like to add?
No, other than, you know, for me, and I often say it when I do the presentations, is, you know, by not listening to the whole conversation, we're not getting the whole picture. And that, to me, is the intelligence part, is you actually need that whole picture to make those informed decisions.
And Henriette, from your side, I think if we just wrap up, as I said, we've got 3 different questions coming in, all about, it's indicating fear of job loss of QAs. Your final word on that.
Final word, I say it again. The machine is not here to replace the human. It's here to make the job more meaningful. I am here to help to make the job more meaningful, and I'm here to take anyone through that journey. I now have experience with close to 80 of our clients who's gone through the transformation. I have practical tips, guides. I will help you get the necessary analytics insights that you need, but also help with removing that fear. It is a step-by-step process, and Nosithle has mentioned it. Don't expect that day one everything is there. It is a painful process. Change is painful for many people, but in that discomfort is where you grow and where your business grows. So the fear will be overcome when they start seeing the benefit, and I'm here to help you realize the benefit.
Excellent. Thanks for that. I see, Magda, you've just joined us. We're about to go into a wrap up, but I will do an edited version of this recording, and I will certainly put it out to everybody who registered today. And also, to anybody on the call, anytime. We are here to assist. We're here to help. As you can see, there's a lot of expertise and a lot of passion. If you would like a full-on demonstration of Callbi and a commercial discussion, please just drop us a line. Be happy to engage. So with that, it's thanks to our guests. Thank you much, and Nosi, for your very valuable contribution. Corey, thanks for your inputs and your wisdom. And Henriette, your knowledge, your passion shows. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And
Thank
so
you, Rod.
we'll wrap up now, and I will put that recording out a little later today for everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.